Welcome back to the Sovereign Way, guys. This is our weekly teaching. These are high spiritual teachings with an exquisite vibration. And we're going through different teachings sequentially so that we can build on what we learn week to week. In the last few weeks, we've been dealing with the process of healing. That's the first mastery, remembering, that brings us back into a poised communion with the part of us that is eternal and true. The second mastery is recognizing. This mastery helps us develop our ability to discern the difference between truth and falsehood and all of the subtle frequencies of what is not the true part of ourselves, right? So if we can remember what is true and unchanging about us, then we can also begin to recognize what is not. And those two masteries, remembering and recognizing, make sense when we embrace the third mastery, which is releasing. Because if you can remember what is true and come into communion with God, and you can recognize falsehood and everything that is not true, then you also want to have the ability to release the things that are not true, release the agreements you've made with things that don't serve, release the people in your life who hold you back, release the anchors, the ties that bind you to something that is unwanted and not the full expression of your potential. But your mastery as a sovereign being doesn't end there. And yes, of course, life is a cycle, and we do have to keep coming back to remembering and recognizing and releasing as we go along. But now it's time to face the expansive challenges of life. Because guess what? Life goes on, which means that we need to know how to deal with the marvels of unexpected becoming, the completely uncertain challenge of flow in an endlessly relational universe. None of your mastery training, whatever religion you think you belong to, none of it will ever give you the ability to design and manifest your perfect vision for your imagined future. That's right. I know you love calling yourself a co-creator. I know you love saying that I can be, do, and have anything I want. But the truth is that the actualizing future will always be much grander than you can imagine, precisely because you exist in a harmony that is also expanding. So you'll always be facing challenges. There will always be experiences that seem bigger than you can handle until you've handled them. And the vision of what's coming, your vision for your future, is nowhere near the truth of what God has for you. Plus, we're collectively going into new times of turbulence and uncertainty, both in the big world stage and in our own intimate and personal lives. So we all need a buoyancy device within reach. You know, I live in Sarasota and we have a lot of water here and we have people going out on the boats, and everyone is supposed to wear a buoyancy device. Even the captains who have been captaining for millions of years wear a buoyancy device. So you have not arrived at a sort of a level of consciousness or a stage of spiritual mastery where you don't need a buoyancy device. You need to keep it within reach. And whenever you feel that you're about to go under, you reach for the buoyancy device and you strap it on. And it's a buoyancy device for your mind, for your emotions, and for your spirit. Imagine having that. Imagine having a buoyancy device for your mind and your emotions and your spirit. As soon as the flow seems to be greater than you can handle, you reach for that buoyancy device and you strap it on. And yes, you float then to the top of the current of life. And there's no fear of going under. And it's not just a single person buoyancy device either. It's not just so that you can stay afloat, but so that you can extend a life raft for others. Because I tell you what, I don't know a single person who thinks only of themselves. In fact, usually when my clients ask for help with overwhelm, it's because they want to be better for the ones they love. Because there's a longing within each of us to lift each other up. And we can't do that while we're treading water. My 6-year-old doesn't weigh very much, but when I'm in the ocean treading water, she goes, "Mummy," and clings onto me. Blah, 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 blah. Down I go. Down I go. How often are you treading water just to stay afloat, and yet you're allowing all these people to cling on to you? You need a buoyancy device, not just for yourself, but for those you love. And honestly, you're an alchemist. You're someone who uses your art to influence change for the benefit of others. Whatever your art is, your talent, your gift, you help the world become better because of the nature of who you are. That's what's natural, by the way. Improvement is natural. What people need now more than ever before is your hope. It's your knowing that it really will work out all right in the end. Because we're all facing this tremendous time of expansion. And you're the one with the power to demonstrate a way of gracefully dealing with challenge. In my experience, anxiety and overwhelm are the results of forgetting that it all works out all right in the end. And no wonder that we forget this. It's really hard to comprehend that things work out when we see proof every single day that conflicts with that. Everywhere we go, we see proof that things aren't working out. And when we can't make sense of the difference between how I want to feel about life and what's actually going on right now, then it's really hard to grasp the knowing of improvement. And it's certainly hard to hold on to hope. But I love this quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes. It's one of my favorites. He's a wonderful philosopher and a mystic and a poet. And he has this bit here. When a resolute young man steps up to that great bully, the world, and takes it boldly by the beard, he's generally surprised to see that it comes off in his hand and that it was only tied on to scare away the timid adventurer. So just a little bit of courage to examine what frightens us equals a tremendous amount of power to face our adversities and our strife. With the Sovereign Way, we have a strategy for expansion, which allows us to increase our capacity for managing life when it seems greater than us. And today, I'm going to teach you a specific protocol for handling whatever it is that you're dealing with, right? A specific mindset protocol that allows you to expand your capacity so you can deal with whatever the thing is that you're dealing with. It's a buoyancy device. And it's going to take most of the pressure off your shoulders. I found it incredibly useful when dealing with life challenges of immeasurable depth, and even dealing with the silly little self-inflicted challenges too. The stupid little stuff that I do to myself on a day-to-day basis. But like you, I've been through incredible ordeals. There was a long period in my life when my family went through hardship after hardship and we just couldn't catch a break. We were homeless for a while. A bear attacked our camp, etc., etc. I know a thing or two about overwhelm. And this is how it seems to me, right? It seems to me that overwhelm is the feeling that what's coming at me is bigger and faster than what I can handle. That's overwhelm. Like I'm standing in a river and I'm unable to keep my footing because the current is increasing. I'm afraid I'm going to go under. Like even the slightest little thing, like spilled milk, becomes like a terror attack. It becomes like a personal attack on my being. And as crazy as this sounds, that feeling of overwhelm is actually a sign of your love. You feel this way because you care. Hold on to that for a moment. You feel overwhelm and anxiety because you care. There's nothing abnormal about overwhelm, but it gets in the way of your peace and it really slows down the natural progression of your life because you're resisting the very thing that has emerged to be lived. But what's really genius about the hero protocol that I'm going to share with you today is that it's so simple to remember, it's so simple to implement, and it's energetically aligned with what you need to accomplish. And when you've practiced it a few times, it becomes embodied. It sort of lands in your heart and in your muscle memory. And you no longer have to consciously take each step when you meet challenges. You simply start to flow through them. So it becomes like this buoyancy device that you're always wearing. You don't even have to reach for it and put it on, because as the current increases, you rise in capacity as well. So learn this protocol and practice it really well if you're about to take on a big mission, whether it's a body reboot or reconciliation with an estranged family member, or a change of career, or helping someone transition, or launching a new personal project, like a book or an online course, or maybe learning a whole new way of being human in a post-pandemic world. Because you know what? There's always going to be some challenge ahead. And you know what? That's part of the deal. That's part of the game. It's part of the sacredness of life. And you deserve to be the superhero when that time comes. This is a universal truth. The natural way of the cosmos is compression, is expansion and compression. Expansion and compression. And that means always pushing against the boundaries of what is. So the resistance that you feel when you're feeling overwhelmed by whatever it is in front of you, that resistance is an indication that you've met the edge of what is known for you. Whether it's the edge of what you know as your capacity, or the edge of what you know as a solution, or the edge of what you know of possibility. That resistance that you feel when you're in front of something overwhelming is just a sign that you've reached the edge of what is known for you. So this means that you're moving into a wider and deeper and more expansive version of life. It does not mean that you're doing something wrong, that you're missing the path, or that you're not healthy or spiritual enough, or you don't have enough mental fortitude. It doesn't mean that you haven't properly integrated your past lives. It doesn't mean that you haven't properly healed your ancestral wounds. It doesn't mean anything about the past. It means that here is something that is. And your mission is to move into the next step for the highest and best outcome. And the courage that it takes to lean into the challenge instead of denying it or condemning its existence, or blaming the past or your mother or whatever it was, the key to leaning into that challenge, that's how you move into the next season of your life. What's in the way is the way. And by the way, this isn't specific to any particular sort of difficulty or another. I've got my own story about what's turned up in my life as a challenge. And working as a spiritual director and therapist and coach, I've sat in intimate communion with hundreds of clients dealing with sorrow woven into such diverse sets of circumstances that I know for sure that difficulty is a sacred companion that we all have the opportunity, nay, mission to meet. Let me tell you some of the amazing battles that I've seen my clients win. One is a Marine veteran who found a method to help his acute PTSD because sudden sounds would trigger a flashback that would bring him into combat, and he found a way of dealing with that. One is a woman who forgave her father for dying when she was 5. One is a vice president of a major corporation who managed to calm the oppressive chatter in her mind, and she knew she had to leave her career for the sake of her integrity. One is a man who overcame an abuse cycle programmed into him before he could even walk. One is a 90-year-old woman in the winter season of her life who has to come to terms with the decisions that she made. What about the blind chef who climbed Kilimanjaro? What about a woman who suddenly suffered incredible physical decline from a mysterious undiagnosed disease, who received a miracle and her heartbeat returned to normal and her body returned to strength? Or what about the apostle who's working on the front line in Uganda right now, rescuing young girls from sex trafficking? Or the extremely rich and privileged woman living under crushing depression, finally forgiving her childhood abuser and is free to love and be loved? Wow, there's no end to the list of what counts as difficulty. And there's no measure of how difficulty should be experienced or overcome. And you mustn't think that if you're dealing with a challenge in front of you, that this is a reflection from something unhealed from the past. No, you need to be present to what it is in this moment. And your hardship is a sacred gift. And you don't get to judge what level of hardship another person is experiencing, because you only receive such a small number of energetic data points to make your mind up. And that also means you can't judge your own hardship as not being enough to warrant this feeling, or judging yourself for feeling like it's all too much. I have clients saying to me, oh, I shouldn't feel this way because there are people who have it far worse. Says who? By whose standards? By what data points? By circumstance? We all know structure doesn't rule essence. We need to stop that. We need to stop attempting this meritocratic judgment of what counts as hardship and how we should engage with it. You can't measure whose hardship is more noble between Princess Diana, the epitome of privilege, or a woman sex worker in the slums in Uganda. Because there's no difference. There's no difference between these two souls. Both humans are the spearheads for a hero soul that is meeting a flow of life the best way it knows how. And sure, stories are being told and shared and woven together into community, but no matter how well we think we know someone, the depth of another's life is a mystery. Instead, we need to direct all our attention into our own life. And we need to engage fully with that hardship that we're experiencing, and engage with our life as our eternal companion, as our lover. Because then the wisdom that we harvest from that, that's the only source of true compassion. You cannot walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You must walk that mile in your shoes. And that's the only way you will ever have compassion for what someone else is going through. You can only be there for someone else in their trouble if you've been there for yourself in yours. So this protocol will come in handy as you grow into the marvel that you're becoming. Okay, here then is the 5-step process from the Sovereign Way that you're going to use time and time again to shift a challenge, whether it's monumental or teeny, teeny, tiny. And it's gonna help you shift it into the form of an opportunity. These are 5 very easy but very important steps that bring your mindset along a profound but simple shift that lifts you up from the crushing waves and has you surfing on the tide. This is your buoyancy device. And there are 5 steps. Each step is a state of mind. Got it? So each step is a state of mind that you embody before moving on to the next step. That's important, because this isn't a ritual that we're doing. This is expansion. We're actually shifting the coordinates of our framework of consciousness. We're actually adjusting the diamond in our consciousness to allow a greater flow of spiritual power to move through us. So we must embody each step before we move on to the next. And this provides an orderly, logical elevation of your awareness so that you maintain the right mind, the right action, and the right vibrational state to allow the solution to flow and keep your capacity to master the situation. By the way, the Hero Protocol is a full 5-week private coaching program, so I can't cover it all in one go, but I'm going to synthesize each step. And then if you need a spiritual director and coach to help you cross the threshold, you have me, you have Matt, you have Maria. So reach out to us, you know where to find us, and we'll do the work together. And then with grace and ease, you will be able to handle what's coming, and you will come out the other end of the season with much greater sovereignty. So I'd love for you to find your notebook and your pen if you haven't already. Let's see, where did I put mine? Haven't got it. I didn't bring it. Did you bring yours? I didn't bring mine. That's okay, I know it off by heart. Step 1, surrender. Let's imagine that the flow of life is a river, and that overwhelm is the feeling of your feet being stuck in the mud while the current is increasing. I know where the flow is coming from, and I know where it's going because it's life. It's going into the great unknown. So really, the greatest gift is to surf on the tide of life. But for that, I need to let go of the riverbanks. I need to let go of the structures, the stage, and the control of all the things. And when I do that, I find that the rest of the protocol comes quite easily. But number one, surrender, letting go, that is a craft in itself. And it takes such courage and such practice. And you need your body's help, because you don't need your limbic system triggering you into involuntary stress responses. You know, when we confront a challenge in life, we have this habit of looking at it in isolation. We look at this one challenge, this one thing that I'm dealing with right now, like it's a separate thing that's occurring out there. And then we diagnose it. We give it a reason for existing. We blame it on the thing that happened in the past, and we call it bad. And when we call it bad, that justifies resisting it. And then we have to use our clever brains to think of all the reasons why this challenge shouldn't be so, and all the ways that we could fix it, and all the terrible things that'll happen if we don't. But surrender is the art of accepting this as the truth in the moment. I am standing in front of the hardest challenge of my life, and I don't actually know what it is. It's like I've taken a pixel out of the painting in the Sistine Chapel, and I'm looking at this pixel going, it's so meaningless and ugly and irreparably damaged. But actually, if I place it back into its rightful spot in the great tapestry, the great mysterious tapestry of what's going on, it holds the perfect place for this beautiful masterpiece that connects the divine and the human. And that's why this is a lifelong mastery that you will never not need. Right? Surrender. The willingness to say, I do not have the perspective that shows me all the interconnected streams of cause and effect. And I couldn't possibly comprehend the true meaning of what's going on. I don't know what this is for. I don't know what medicine is hidden inside of it. I don't know the highest and best outcome for all involved. It is what it is, and here I am. And there's another aspect to surrender, and that's the white flag. It's also time to stop fighting some of the battles that you're fighting. You're not going to win. You're not meant to. Some of the dragons in your life don't need to be slayed. Some of the dragons in your life can be allowed. Some of them can even be tamed. But fighting them, you will waste all your energy trying to change something that doesn't need your intervention. Jacking your spiritual ego down a few notches. Surrender. So when you've done that, let's say you're facing the hardest challenge in your life, and you've surrendered, you've let go of the riverbanks, and you said, okay, well, it is what it is. Here it is. I guess we're going to do this thing. Now you do step 2. Now you have to ground. You've surrendered, you've let go. Now you need to orient yourself with the flow. You need to know where you are compared to where the flow is going. And that's a metaphysical craft too. In this case, grounding isn't about walking barefoot in the woods, although that is a perfectly good practice for becoming more present into yourself. But I'm really speaking of getting a genuine grasp of where you are and what you have at your disposal. We call this the grand audit. And it's a thorough catalogue of all your resources, all your contacts, all your physical, metaphysical, spiritual tools. I tell you what, between Maria and Matt and me, we've helped clients literally fill notebooks and notebooks doing the great audit and going, wow, I had no idea how vast I am and how well equipped I am to deal with this challenge. Most of the time you're overwhelmed because you have no idea how incredibly capable you actually are. So grounding, so step 2, grounding is all about understanding that energetic footprint that you already occupy in life, gathering your resources, cataloging your power, grounding into where you are compared to where the flow is going. So you see, for a moment there, you were floundering, treading water, going, this is way too much for me to handle. And then you let go and you were like, hang on a minute, the flow of life is going to take me anyway. And then you oriented yourself. Then you were like, well, if that's the case, then who am I? Where am I? And what have I got at my disposal? So that's step 1 and step 2. And when you put these two together, when you put surrender and ground together, it's almost like, I like to visualize sort of a ballerina in sort of a graceful jeté, you know, the great leap. It's sort of like a graceful landing after an incredible, tumultuous flourish, right? Flourish, that's a good word for that. From crazy to gracefully landing back into life, back into presence. Surrender and ground, the 2 first steps in the hero's protocol. Now, the reason I love ground, the reason I love this second step is because it really gives you an actual audit of your energetic footprint in life. And it's always larger than you thought. You're going to do it regularly because you keep expanding. And you'll get the experience of expanding worthiness. You'll get you and I know that your worthiness is infinite and infinitely immeasurable, but you'll get the feeling of knowing it more, like a bank account of rapidly appreciating assets. You see, it's very good to take stock of your empire, to take stock of the dominion over which you have been placed as the sovereign one. And also, for acute situations, the most important reason I love ground is that this technique shows you your ability to handle the challenge. Like I said, we've seen so many clients do the great audit and go, crikey, I had no idea I was actually capable of handling this. But think of David and Goliath. Everybody tried to conquer this enormous, vast, otherworldly challenge. And they were all using traditional methods of resistance. Bring in the weapons, bring in the mighty weapons. And they all tried to bring down this ginormous otherworldly challenge. And they perished. They were overwhelmed by the vastness of what was in front of them. But David stopped to know himself and to know his tools. And instead of charging forward, using the same method as everyone else, he used what he had from where he was. And he won. Not only did he take down this giant challenge, but he became king. He took the crown. He became the sovereign. Little David, from where he was, using what he had. That's the power of the second step, ground. So there you were, treading water, floundering around in the crazy waves. Then you surrendered and you let go and you surrendered to the flow. And then you grounded in to who you are and what you have at your disposal. Now you lift yourself up. Step 3 is power up. To get on top of the surf. Now you do this energetically, you do this mentally, you do this physically, and yes, that's also a craft. Energetically, you elevate your vibration. That's a natural side effect of the first two steps, surrender and ground, by the way. Your mindset naturally elevates from doing those two things. And so you allow the vibration to dial up. This is a recalibration. In doing so, you automatically experience a greater flow, a greater alignment with that flow. You do it mentally by allowing your narrative to shift to meet that new vibration. Actually, quantum, we understand that quantum cognition is the way that our thoughts rearrange themselves, not linearly, as in A to B to C to D, but our thoughts arrange themselves according to quantum cognition. So as your vibration has elevated, naturally, your narrative will shift as well. And your job is just to allow that narrative to shift, to notice that mentally you're weaving a new story. And we do it physically. Tend to the body, rehydrate, nourish up, get strong again, move the body. And yes, powering up is also a craft. But working with us privately on this, we'll examine your greatest talents, your skills, your crafts, your superpowers, and we'll examine how they apply to the expansion that you're facing. So in the Sovereign Way, we have an entire suite of ways that we can help you do this. Power up. One of my students told me this story that she'd heard about a Paralympian. This was a gold-winning hero, multiple gold medals in the Paralympics. But she'd gone through life with the challenge of having no legs. She'd been born with no legs, and she'd suffered greatly from this disadvantage. On and on, she'd suffered through her life. She'd struggled through school and all sorts, being bullied, being left behind, and not to mention the physical pain involved with overcompensating with other parts of her structure. Until one school field race day in high school, she came first in a 200-yard race and she beat all of her two-legged peers. And just as she heard her own parents sort of celebrating her from the stands, some loud-mouthed woman pointed to her prosthetic legs and said, "That's not fair, she has an advantage." And that was the launch of her championship. It was a pivoted perspective, turning her weakness into a superpower. So her whole life, she had believed she was disadvantaged having no legs until someone pointed out her unfair advantage. Fantastic. So powering up is all about collecting those superpowers and putting them directly into application, taking your disadvantage and turning it into an advantage. Power up. So step 1, surrender. Step 2, ground. Step 3, power up. Get strong. Get big. Number 4, act. Now you take action. Now you maneuver the surfboard, right? You don't try and take on the waves of the great blue sea until the point that you're on top. Because otherwise it feels like you're taking on all the battles and carrying all the weight of the world. No, you get on top first, and now you act. Now you move forward into the challenge that lies ahead. So first you surrender to the increasing flow. Then you ground in and you know, who am I and what do I have at my disposal? Then you strengthen, you expand your capacity, you become greater, and then you act. Now it's time to discern how to move and what choices will lead you onto the right path, the solution. And that's also a craft, by the way. You know, taking right action is a craft. Discerning right action is a craft. But even if you can discern the right action, there's no point taking it until you're on top. So don't act before you've surrendered, grounded, and powered up, because it might be the right way forward, but you don't have the capacity. Sometimes the action is as simple as putting on the kettle for a cup of tea. That's what we do in England, where I'm from. Pop on the kettle, it'll solve most problems. And sometimes the action is enormous, like leaving a relationship or a career or a location and launching a completely new life. But whether it's a big action or a small action, you cannot take that action until you've surrendered, grounded, and powered up. Because now you have influence. Now you have an impact on what's in front of you. And then the fifth step. So surrender, ground, power up, act, and finally, allow. Let the surf take you, and trust that you are held buoyant by life itself, that there is support for you, and there are ones who can help take some of the weight off your shoulders. And then allow the feeling of surfing. And indeed, this is a craft. But allowing what comes next is a statement of trust that because I've surrendered to what is, and I don't know what's going on here, but I do understand because I remember, right? Because I've already mastered the first mastery of remembering, because I remember that the sovereign Lord is in charge. I remember that I'm a part of a vast benevolent universe that's infinitely greater than me. So I am actually willing to surrender to that power, to that higher intelligence. And since I've done that and I've grounded into who I am, which means I've surrendered the circumstance to the higher intelligence, but I am taking accountability for the role that I've been given, the role that I've been ordained to by the nature of my experience, by the nature of me being here. And I've grounded into that and taken stock of actually what I've got ready at my disposal. And because I've done that, and then I've powered myself up and I've become the greatest I can be, and then I've taken action, that means that whatever comes next is the highest and best outcome, whatever it looks like. It cannot be anything but. If you followed that protocol, then what comes next, you have no reason to doubt it. There is no reason to doubt the outcome, whatever it looks like. And maybe it doesn't look like happy, shiny, sparkly fairy kisses. Maybe it looks smelly and dirty and tricky. But then you can trust that that too is the next step. And what do you do if it's challenging? You do the hero protocol again. You surrender, you ground, you power up, and then you take another action and you allow another outcome. In doing so, in following this way of being and following this sort of mindset protocol, you're allowing a natural buoyancy in life so that when the flow increases, or even when the flow reduces down to a trickle, you can allow it to be that way. And honestly, allowing that buoyancy in life, that's the hardest part. Because you know what? Sometimes we want to sink to the bottom. Sometimes we want to hold on to the riverbanks. We want the current to stop before we make our next move. We want someone to turn off the tap just for a moment. But allowing there to be grace around us all the time, allowing ourselves to believe that we're wearing a buoyancy device that will never not work, that we're held inside a graceful body of Christ at all times, that will lighten the yoke, that will help you adjust your mindset and know that we're capable, that will give you the courage to allow your friends and your community experts to help when you need it. Maybe that's the hardest part, is allowing yourself to be a participant in a flow that never ends. But from now on, when you meet challenges and difficulty that you either can influence or not, and there are many such things in life, then you still get to enjoy the hero's journey through your life as you dance with these challenges like lovers, because you have the hero's protocol. So from now on, you no longer believe that challenges can overwhelm you. You'll always have that life jacket to help the feeling of overwhelm. You no longer believe that overwhelm is a sign that you're not capable or that you haven't done it right. You no longer believe that Goliath can beat you because you know who you are and you know what you have. So you surrender, you ground, you power up, you act, and then you allow. That's the hero's protocol from the Sovereign Way. So I'm going to invite you to sink in for just a little moment. Breathe deeply and steadily. And bring your focus right to the front of your mind and your energy and your presence. So you are poised, but calm. Your brain is poised. Your muscles are poised. Your posture is strong. You are ready to take care of business. Breathe in and breathe out. And repeat after me with your voice strong and assured. It doesn't matter who can hear you or what they think. I am the hero of my life. Only I can see this through. I am supported. I surrender. I am here. I know who I am. I am ready to serve. I have what I need. I know what to do. I dare to do it. And I allow the process from there. Well done. Well done, hero, for being willing to participate in your life, for understanding that your sovereignty and your life mastery includes expansion. It includes the willingness to growth, and it also means that you will always be facing something greater than you, and that's okay. So from now on, I want you to know that you are the master potter, and that you have your what do they call those rotating thingies? You throw the hump of pottery onto this spinning board wheel, that's it. And then you gently and lovingly expand that clay. You increase the capacity of your vessel to hold more life force, to think more easily, more quickly, to hold more love for others, and to be a greater and better servant of life. So thank you very much for joining the Sovereign Way today. By the way, invite your friends into the Sovereign Way group so that they may drink from this wellspring as well. Well done, heroes. Go boldly into this week and grab that bully by the beard and see how it comes off in your hands. I love you all very, very much. Reach out to us if you need private support. Lots of love.